What's up, HyperFast Nation? On this episode of the show, I sat down with a team leader who runs the highest selling team in Palm Beach County. She's been a real estate veteran for nearly 8 years, specializes in high-end clients and sports and entertainment clients, has a team of 30. Welcome to the show, Holly Meyer Lucas. Welcome to the show today, Holly. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So thankfully, you were not harmed in the tornado that ripped through Palm Beach County last week. So we're able to be on this podcast today.
Yeah, it was a doozy. It's so like in Florida, we're so used to extreme weather here, with like floods and hurricanes and so the tornado when the warnings started happening, we were like, it's fine. Turns out it wasn't. It's crazy. The biggest damage here,
Yeah.
which is so the biggest damage here, which is so like on brand for Florida, was boats being lifted out of the water, like up and out and being carried around. So that was weird.
Yikes. Yeah, I guess with the hurricanes, you at least have a lot of notice, but the
Yeah,
tornadoes or that insane rain that Fort Lauderdale got a few weeks ago too. That was kind of came out of
that's crazy.
nowhere as well.
It's crazy how much
And
as us as real estate professionals, like how much weather actually does impact us. So not only like with like pending contracts, but like a home being damaged, a listing being damaged, our signs, like there's a lot that goes into a real estate career in terms of weather, shockingly.
Well, tell us a little bit about your real estate career and how you got started and the amazing team that you're running now and you know doing deals with in the sports and entertainment division. Just give us a quick bio.
Yeah. So my name's Holly Meyer Lucas. I am the principal team leader of the Meyer Lucas team. We're in Jupiter, Florida, which is a hotbed for professional athletes and their families. When I first started 8 years ago, I grew up in Germany, and I thought that my niche was going to be that I'm European and I speak German. Come to quickly find out that everyone that speaks German speaks English perfectly, and there just aren't. It's a very weird niche. Like not a lot of Germans. So at the time, my husband played baseball professionally for like 14 years. He still works in baseball. And so at the time, I had been helping my friends who were baseball wives relocate to Jupiter. And it's funny how like your niche sometimes finds you, which is the most authentic form of like personal brand and niche, right? Like when it finds you. And so I just became known as the person that works with the baseball players. And one thing led to another. And I mean, Jupiter did me a solid by, Michael Jordan's here and Tiger Woods is here. And so Jupiter in general is like the professional athlete hub. So couldn't have recreated my little brand if I tried, which is kind of the best way to build a brand and a true authentic niche.
Yeah, a lot of sports players, a lot of billionaires too. I think in Palm Beach County, I think
Yeah.
they've got more billionaires in the county than in any other. Now I think I was reading it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, Forbes just came out with that recently, and it's not surprising. We have our area is it's just inundated with high net worth people who have relocated here as a result of everyone thinks that COVID was the biggest catalyst for this mass migration of wealth throughout the United States. Texas, Tennessee, Florida, Nevada are these like hubs of relocation, right? And the biggest reason is probably COVID, work from home, whatever, but also the salt tax situation, which was, substantial for our area. That tax reform in 2018 really did force a lot of New Yorker and Californians' hand in terms of where they. And if you're listening to this and in real estate and you're not familiar with the salt tax thing, Google it because it's definitely worth knowing about.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think the migration had been happening for a while, just in general for Florida's tax situation and
Yeah.
weather and you know work from home has become more and more of a thing even before COVID. Like 10 years ago, no one really was on Zoom. So
Yeah.
I think yeah, you're right. The salt thing accelerated it, and then COVID accelerated it even more. So it's just a larger pattern that's been going on for a while. How long have you been in Jupiter in Florida and doing real estate?
Yeah. So I've been here for 10 years, selling real estate for eight. And I've lived everywhere, all over the place, kind of a nomad, which I think as a real estate agent actually makes me a better real estate agent. A lot of times I'm up against, I have a team of around 30 mix of agents and support staff. And the vast majority of us are from all over the place too. And when we're up against, for a listing, for example, when we're up against an agent that is like from Jupiter, born and raised, I love that objection because it, I think we are better real estate agents for having moved across for what's happening in Florida specifically, like having relocated a whole bunch, changed schools as kid. Like I just get it. I know how hard it is. I
Yeah.
get
You've been through it, or your
it.
team members have been through it, so they can relate to prospective buyers a
Yeah.
lot more, empathize with them more, and help them make that decision.
Yeah. Totally.
What was the biggest challenge getting started 8 years ago?
So I started my team pretty much not day one, but it was like day 30. I started at KW at Keller Williams, and I was in the little pit in the office, and a come list me call came into the office at Keller Williams, which was kind of unheard of at the time.
Hmm.
And so I panicked and went on this listing appointment. I bumbled together all these like listing materials, and I went and met with this man who was selling a house. It was like this tiny little shanty of a home. God love it. It was a adorable little, as one has, first listing, right? And I sat there with him, and I sold him on the idea of we, and that I had this like team behind me, and just kind of talked myself accidentally into this image of having a team. And I was coming out of the corporate world, so it wasn't like I was lying. I was just used to talking in terms of we, right? So I got back to the office at KW, and there was a girl who was like 19 years old sitting in the pit. Her name's Savannah. And I was like, hey, you want to join my team? We have one listing. And so she had already sold a home, and I had sold, I'd represented a buyer previously. So collectively we had sold homes, right? And then one thing led to another. And in a year, like in my first year in real estate, I made like 400 grand and had a team of like 5, like pretty much immediately.
Wow, that's that's a pretty wild start. I mean,
Yeah.
um, and then
It is,
what?
and the reason I'm pretty outspoken, like on any talks that I give or whatever. I'm pretty outspoken and pretty transparent about my start because I realize it's not normal. And so when people, like, a lot of times when I it's not normal, and it's also not recommended either. Like I did everything cart before the horse, everything. I'm always doing things cart before the horse, and like I try to stay nimble with and I mean that in a good way. Like I try to stay nimble with like our various marketing things so that so that we're able to double down when things work, and sometimes that strategy pans out for us and sometimes it doesn't.
What system or coach or book helped you kind of model how you built your team out, or were you just kind of figuring it out as you went along?
School of hard knocks, man.
Yeah.
I mean I really was building the plane as I was flying it. I think so I did about 100 things wrong and maybe 4 things right. The things that I did right were identifying when I was making a mistake and bailing on it. Like if we were headed in the wrong direction, I was super transparent about like, oh, that didn't work. Like we'll pivot out of it, right? I'm really hyper aware of like my strengths and weaknesses and whatnot. And 2, I think that paying attention to business in the United States in general, real estate agents get really hyper focused with, the real estate coaches and the real estate specific books. And at the end of the day, running a team is like running a small business. And so if you listen to like, Sarah Blakely's story or James Dyson or anyone's story, this is where podcasts are amazing, right? Like, so I always say like my mentors were like Barbara Corcoran's Spotify channel that she had for like that episode. That one time was like a one-on-one mentorship session, right?
Yeah. No, it's definitely cool what podcasts have done with that, and I've listened to Sarah's story as well, and you're right. A lot of it is just kind of figuring out as you go. Like you've got some drive, some end goal or idea where where you're going to be, but you don't exactly know how you're going to get there, and it's constantly changing, and people just figure it out, I think.
Yeah, totally. I think the biggest thing with it is just not pretending like you know all the answers. Like I think that's where leaders really get themselves in ruts and where they make mistakes is having either too big of an ego or not enough self-awareness to that it's okay to identify that like we'll see if this works. If it doesn't, we'll figure it out.
So how did you go from 5 people to now a team of 30?
So I keep it specifically, I like to keep it at 30. 30 is kind of our cap. We have a wait list that's pretty extensive for people to join us. Anytime I've gone above that number, things just start getting kind of squirrely. So I'm intentionally scaled up to that level, if that makes sense. I look for people that align like 5 out of 5 criteria, people that align with 5 out of 5 of our criteria. And it's just it's our secret sauce in terms of the agents that will be fire in our ecosystem. We're wrong a lot of the time. Like we have, as most real estate teams do, we have agents that come and go, but the ones that stick around are amazing. And our vetting process is probably the area that I take the most seriously. Like our training and our vetting process around the agents that join us.
What's the what are the criteria, those 5 out of 5, if you're allowed to share?
Yeah. So so all of this is it boils down to like me as a leader and the type of people that are going to be like the best fit for mutually, right? So this is, and I'm saying that because this works for me and it probably won't work for you and it probably won't work for the next person, whatever. So the first and foremost is hustle muscle. Like you have to have that second gear, that ability to move fast, think fast, be fast. You have to have high energy. It has to sound like you're smiling on the phone. You have to have like infectious high energy. There has to be a lifestyle alignment. So if I bring up the first baseman for the Yankees, like you should probably know who that is. I look for, well, because of who we work with, and also like again, it's like very, very specific things. So lifestyle alignment, savviness, like just generally being savvy to the world and world news. And it drives me nuts when people don't pay attention to like things that are happening in the world. And then the fifth is loyalty and being a good person, like what your previous bosses or exes would say about you. It's really, really important to me.
What's been your biggest challenge so far with having a large team of 30? I know a lot has gone on in the last 3 or 4 years with the first initial shock of COVID. Then there's like no inventory. Then in some markets it
Yeah.
stopped for a while. And like what's been your biggest challenge, you think, through all of that?
Yeah, I mean, all of that. Like it's been a freaking doozy, as a leader. Like I think straight across the board, across the country, we all have that in common. I think that it's staying personally motivated to motivate others. It's engaging. So over the last 8 years, I have a really heavy training like module. We call it the Meyer Lucas method, and it's like this training program that agents, sign up for when they join us. And it takes a lot of time, energy, and effort on my end to, train brand new agents. Like any real estate leader, I feel like would nod along with that emphatically because just training in general is just a lot to do over and over and over again, right? And so I think that when an agent, like I've been burned so many times by agents, coming and going in and out of my ecosystem, and that happens, that's just real estate. And so I think that getting the energy to show up the next day and train the next one, knowing that squirreliness exists in our industry is yeah. It's
Yeah.
is that relatable for you? Is that
No, totally. I mean, it's yeah, there's a lot of transition in this industry, a lot of churn, and even the best teams, you're still, gonna constantly be like recruiting, onboarding, training, hire, all of that. So,
yeah.
um,
Our industry
and
is also
it's
so unique in that Like no matter how much you pour into someone and how awesome they then offboard. Like I always encourage agents to like, I love it more than anything when an agent has been with us for a certain amount of time and then they want to go do their own thing. Like they want to start their own thing. But it's really, really challenging to start your own thing without really ripping off and copying where you came from. In our industry, it's just really a unique thing. Um, people that leave Microsoft don't go and start Microsoft unless they do, but it's like you can't copy and paste. Our business is actually not that robust, right? So copying and pasting and ripping off and repeating is, so I think keeping my ego in check and like allowing that to happen and being okay with it is something I've really had to work on too.
Yeah. How has the market been in your area the last year? I think in general, there's across the country, there's less deals. Out west, prices are double digit decreases,
Yeah.
15%. Northeast has been kind of flat, and I think southeast, but in particular Florida, is prices are for the most part still going up.
Yeah.
What have you guys been seeing in terms of sales and volume?
Yeah, so it's been a doozy as a leader because nationally, like we want to be paying attention to what's happening nationally, right? And people relocating here are moving from places where there's like, well, how are things in your market?
We are down in volume 25-30% and flat on pricing, and then you know certain areas will get tons of offers. Certain type home types will get multiples still, and then others there's a lot less interest. So it's
Yeah,
it's very challenging. It's kind of it's almost like 2021 where you don't have the right inventory, you're competing, but you just don't have as much volume as you did back then. So
yeah.
it's definitely
It's
hard
so we
for the
have
agents.
Yeah, no doubt. We have so many people that are relocating from your area, from the Northeast, from everywhere, honestly. But I've been recommending. Um, so we've been handling things in like 30-day increments, right? So Q4 was like the worst quarter for everybody, and we did like 70 rental sides in Q4 because it was like, all right, nobody's
Mm.
buying, like we'll double down on rentals, see how it works. Ended up working out for us. Could have very well not worked out, whatever. So we're doing these like 30-day bite-sized things. So I've been advising my agents to pay close attention to, like, if you have someone that's relocating from Arlington, to know what the market's doing there because their mood is going to be aligned with that. Like they can't help it. So us saying like, telling a buyer who has their home on the market, let's say with you and your team, and it's, sitting and it's been 3 weeks and they haven't got an offer and they have to buy here because they're relocating, us telling them that they need to put in an offer tomorrow. Like we have to set those expectations from the first phone call that like, okay, and so communication between agents, like you and I talking about, like if you're referring as that client, whatever, you and I talking about what the climate is where you are, and me then asking you to then help me also coach the client through what our climate is like, because our market is hot, like it's really hot, and I think there are only a handful of markets in the country that are like that right now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Even if they're not selling a home,
Yeah,
I think or they already sold it, they still have this framework of what the market was in their area, and they're
yeah.
not just going to automatically adjust to what the reality is in their next place. So I think that's a really good point to ask the referring agent and just talk about that up front before it becomes an issue
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
during the
God, I've
during
learned
the
that the
showing
hard way.
process.
I've learned that the hard, like setting expectations and God, getting ahead of buyer. It's funny, like the more, how long have you been selling real estate?
11 years now.
Got it. Like I feel like every time there's a confrontation with a buyer or seller, unfortunately inevitable, but it's like, all right, now add that to the playbook of the thing that will educate ahead of it happening. Like, all right, buyer might track mud through your house. So now, like, we'll set that expectation up front. And, it's just so funny, like, how experience, I think, in our industry really, really matters. Like, a lot. Contrary to what I said 8 years ago when I met with my first sellers, like, experience matters.
Well, you were getting experience on the job and starting at a lower price point, working your way up. What's it like when you're working with athletes in particular? Is there anything different you'd do for them compared to, other
Yeah.
clients?
Yeah, so with athletes, it's for the vast majority of working with an athlete. Like I'm going to speak in terms of like the stereotypes, right? You usually don't work with the guy or girl, her or himself. It's usually their team of people. Like my network, if there was a fire at my office and I could save one thing, it would be my database of sports agents and wealth advisors who
Mm.
work with athletes. That's where the vast majority of my contacts are. The athletes themselves, they come and go, and it's a fickle career. I mean, you can be, if you have an 8-year career as a professional athlete, like you're a baller.
Yeah.
So yeah, so on one hand it's recession proof because in our area, like there's always new guys, but the long career are the sports agents and the wealth advisors, and they really do help their clients make decisions on real estate things. So blah blah blah. My point with that is that keeping the person in the loop who is really in control of the transaction, the agent and their financial advisor, is so important. Not trying to go around them. If their financial advisor is advising them, to make an offer in a certain, like a lowball offer in our hot market, for example, like that's on me to have, because I didn't educate them or I didn't have a conversation with them ahead of time. Like if there's friction because of that, that's on me. Yeah, there's a lot. God, I could talk about that forever. There's a lot that goes into managing the different personalities. There are a lot of parents that get involved in their, because the guys are kids. Um,
Right.
there's a lot.
Yeah, we've had a few like hockey and baseball clients up here in DC before, and yeah, you are right. You're dealing with the agent or their handlers, I guess,
Yeah.
financial advisors more, and I think that's another kind of important thing is no matter what niche you're trying to get into, the gatekeepers really are the ones that can drive the business. Whether you're like a divorce specialist, right? There's estate attorneys, divorce attorneys, or just like the presidents of your HOA, like they know everything that's going on in the neighborhood. So they're kind of everywhere, right? So you
Yeah.
just have to think of like who can I network with, build a relationship with that has access to hundreds of potential buyers and sellers.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the same thing with, you just brought up such a good point. Like those careers, those gatekeepers are long term, unless they're bad at their job and they get fired. But like those, like buyers and sellers are going to come and go, and you should build relationships with your buyers and sellers, no doubt about that. But sending the thank you note for an HOA person who like gave you the access to the thing that you needed, like those little gratitude touches for the assist is like 10 for 10 big money energy.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Before we wrap up, I always like to do a hyper fast round if you're ready for some rapid fire Q&A.
Let's do it.
All right, what's your biggest piece of advice to a new real estate agent?
Don't overthink your business card design or your website.
What's one thing that you see experienced real estate agents messing up?
The value of agent to agent relationships. I think our generation of real estate agents have done a really good job of like bringing like cross brokerage colleagues in on deals. And I think the veteran agents, while some of them are very, very good at this, I think there's that like double-ended like mentality that I think is a mistake. Like you make more money by doing deals faster with your colleagues.
Hmm. All right. What's one thing you're doing in your business today that you were not doing a year ago?
Ooh, well, the obvious answer is AI. Like, geez, AI is nuts right now.
What's what are you most likely doing when you're not working on your real estate business?
So 3 boys, and they're all active, and I love watching them play sports. It's so funny. They're like 9 and 7, and um, me from 8 years ago would have been like prospecting the
Hmm.
sidelines and like trying to make like connections on the sidelines. But Holly today is like ball caps, sunglasses. Hope I don't run into a client. Like I'm here to watch my kids.
That's awesome. Last question. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Okay, so I, I don't like that question. Like, where do you see yourself? And the reason why is because I think so. The name of the game with my business, like the reason why I am where I am, is because I've stayed nimble and like have like pivoted and evolved. So like broad answer, like hopefully still kicking. But I don't
Sure.
like being like a specific. answer to that.
No, that's perfectly fine. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. If people listening or watching want to get in touch with you or connect or learn more about buying or selling in your area, how should they connect with you?
Instagram's always the easiest. I feel like I always am like quicker to respond on Instagram for some reason, which is weird. Like, you're heavily on Instagram, right?
Yeah, Instagram and even a lot more TikTok, actually.
Oh,
It's kind
cool.
of funny.
Got it. It's weird.
Yeah.
Like I feel like Instagram DMs, I'm like, oh, well, my text can wait. I'll respond to this. But yeah, holly.meyer.lucas on Instagram.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. And to all of our listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in. Please give us some feedback. This was an amazing show. Please leave us a review, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. It was good talking to you.